Hello and welcome, adventurers. Today's the day, huh? Big update. So I thought I would take the time to explain what the update actually means. Should you update, and what are the risks of updating? So for this, I'm going to go over and explain a little bit about how the update system works. Effectively, you have your worlds, and they all work using, as I've shown you before in the game systems, you've got your actual game system here. D&D 5th edition is the one that I'm using, but you can use, like, even if you're using Warhammer or any of the other ones, this is the place to be. So first of all, you want to make sure that this is up to date. And if you do update it, there's a few things you need to note. So firstly, we click update here. This is going to do an update for the system that Atropos has released. This is in preparation for the primary update, so it's good to do this one first usually. It will tell you if it's not compatible, which means you'll need to update the other system first. So we can see that this update has installed successfully. We go to Game Worlds here. I'm going to go into our... I'll go into our Azeroth world because there isn't too much here that I need to do. So do you see the way it says here, applying the update here? So it has applied the system update. It is going to go through each of your compendiums. So what that means is that if you have a bunch of compendiums here, it's going to do an update of all of these separate compendiums. To make sure that they're compatible with the latest version. Now, in the top right corner, you can just barely see it because of my border, but in the top right corner, there's a little exclamation mark. You can see this here. This says that there's a version update available for FoundryVTT, and also the D&D 5th edition, if we hadn't have updated that just now, would also have an exclamation mark telling us that that is ready. Now, when you see that it's applying the update, do not close your game or shut down your server. Just leave that going. Once this is done, you'll see another message here at the top. This one specifically, D&D 5e system migration to version 1.5.6 completed. When that's done, you can shut down your world again and go back to setup. So what we'll do is we'll return to setup here. Now, the next thing is modules, okay? I have a ton of modules. Tons and tons and tons and tons of modules. So if I want to update those, which I can do, I would simply just click update all, unless there are specific ones that I didn't want to update. A lot of these will not update because I'm not on the latest version, but some of them might. Which is so I'll show you now, but effectively you can see that this is installing now and has started to install everything. I haven't updated this side of the game in a while, this client, so it's going to take a moment to go through all of this. But what it's doing is it's checking with each of the different URLs to see if there's anything that can be updated for the specific version that we're using. If you see this message pop up, so for example, FX Master updated version available at new installation, it has an old manifest and a new manifest. You're absolutely able to just click yes on this and it'll automatically update the manifest URL for you, which is something that the developer puts in place. The manifest URL is where it gets the information about the latest version, or it downloads the latest version. So you want to say yes to that. Once it's done that, it downloads that and continues pushing forward. Now, if I was to scroll down, you can see this is going to happen. So you can see this is updated. This one hasn't yet. So these are in the update queue. But as you scroll down, you'll be able to see which ones are updating, which ones aren't. It actually says it up at the top here too. Because I have so many, it's going to take a moment for that to go through the process. Once it's finished, you'll see that this package update log appears, and this tells you everything that is updated. If you see a warning, it will tell you why. So in this case, the droppables cannot be installed because it requires core software version 9, and we're only on 8.9. But once you're on version 9, you'll be able to. And it tells you what core version you're using. The rest of these work. So the JB2A Patreon, that one's not working. That usually happens whenever they release an update. Sometimes their URL breaks for a while, or they may have released a new URL now that I haven't updated to. Could very well be as well. Again, a lot of warnings here. This is for the same thing because I haven't updated. This just means that these guys are getting ready now for the newer version than what we're running with. So we've got our modules updated. We've got our game system updated, but our software isn't updated yet. There are a few things to check before you update your software. So I will include links below for the current version, but usually Reddit is the best place to find this information. So if we switch over here, on the subreddit, you can get information like this, which is the PSA v9 package compatibility sheet. And on the main page, they also have pinned the v9 stable release and the release notes. Now, you may not be interested in reading the entire thing, and I do understand that, but I do advise heavily that you do check the beginning, because about the add-on modules here explains that if you have any of these types of modules installed, because of the way they're making changes into version 9, it could break your game to have these still installed. So you'll want to ensure that those modules are disabled for your game before you attempt to play. So you don't have to uninstall them or remove them. You can just go into Foundry, go to the modules. You can uninstall them, or you can just go into your game world. I'll show you here. So you go into game world, you go to settings, manage modules, and then you just untick the one you don't want to use. So for me, I have them all unticked because I'm using this as just a test server for everybody. But this is where you would activate and deactivate it. So anything that follows the category of canvas lighting, token vision, fog of war, card support, or key bindings, you would remove. So I don't think I have any of those, but maybe I have a fog of war one. Less fog. There you go. So I would disable that. Anything that interacts with these specific instances. Card support, for example, is if your players are using a module to play like with a deck of cards or a deck of many things or anything like that, anything beyond a macro. This is now adding card support, so it may interfere with the module and it could cause damage to the system. Fog of War, there's a ton of modules that use Fog of War. Key bindings and stuff as well, there's a ton that have that. Token vision, again, just loads of them. Canvas lighting, anything that interacts with your lighting. So what that means is that so anything that has community lighting or light switch here, this kind of thing, the way they interact is they're messing with the system a little bit. So when they do this update, they're releasing, as you can see at the top, a whole bunch of new lighting, like fairy lighting and all sorts of different things. And these types of lighting are going to be interfered with by other modules. So it's better to start without those modules active and then make a backup and everything, of course, and then slowly introduce those things. Now, making a backup of Foundry, that isn't as complicated as you would think. Generally, so if you right click the Foundry in your taskbar, you will get, you can't quite see it in my screen, but if you right click it, you do get user data and application data. I just copy both of those folders somewhere else, like to an external hard drive or something, and I just keep them there. And if everything goes absolutely crazy, I can just restore it from that backup by putting those back in the place that they were. So for example, if I go to my user data, this is my config data and logs. If I go into data, this is everything that I have that you see when I'm using Foundry. If I go to say, add an asset, right? That's all of this stuff. So you can see that here. This is where I keep all of that stuff. Like I've got information here that has nothing to do with it, like idle champions and stuff too. But this is just my whole D&D folder. I just popped it all into my assets folder because it's easy for me to pull up my pictures, for example, or overlays for different things that I use, or perhaps things that I bought on Roll20, stuff like that. So you can find all of that here, but because of that, just back up all of those folders. Anything that's in the user data or the application data, just back them both up before you do any updates. The second thing that you want to take note of is if you're done reading what the stable release updates are, because this is a huge update. This is going from 8.9 to 9.9. That is a pretty big update. What you want to check is just make sure there's no other compatibility issues. This explains why key binding is important, for example, or what changes they're doing to audio, for example. So it's pretty good. But if you want to read all of that, I will leave a link below. And they do post these updates all the time to the website, which means that you can find out more information there about what to do before you do the update. Most important thing to remember is just to disable any modules that involve any of these categories. The second thing, there's a compatibility list, a spreadsheet that the community make. And again, I'll include this below. It's usually pinned to the top of the subreddit whenever there's a new release coming out. But effectively what this means is that when you are doing an update, you click on View Spreadsheet. This will load a spreadsheet of every module that currently exists, that's currently being used, and that is currently ready for version 9. Anything that's green is ready, anything that's red is not. Anything is yellow might have issues but should still work. So because there's so many, we can use, like, here's versions and systems, for example. What you can always do is if you find, let's take a look at, let's find a module here. So let's take a look at, Forian's quest log is probably a good choice. So if we find Forian, there we go, Forian's quest log, we can see that no further development or placement module is being worked on. But version 9 is supported. There is somebody who has taken over the Forian's quest log. So it's just that someone else is maintaining it, but effectively it is ready to go and it is working on version 9. So it should be safe to update. However, if you were to take a look at some of these others, Where were they? They're at the top here. So if you use Splittermond or if you use Vampire 20th, they keep throwing errors. They're not compatible with 9. This spreadsheet gets updated every time somebody sees the update. So it is quite possible that by the time you see this video, this may be updated. So what you do is you go to your modules, your module list, and you effectively have to compare it. There are modules that people have created in the past. They may currently exist as well, which allow you to just run a compatibility check with all of the different versions of what you have. But for the moment, the spreadsheet seems to be the primary and most up-to-date thing to just confirm if it's working or not. Now, I will say that a majority of modules are ready to go. It's just that, for example, I had a module, I can't remember whose it was, but it caused a Stack Overflow on my information. So I had to go in and manually edit the code for all of my items, because what it was effectively doing was changing the weight of my items to 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, and it would do that continuously over and over again until I had gigabytes of text files. It was huge. So you want to be careful with this and make sure that the modules that you're updating are up to date. And if they're not, you can still update Foundry. Just make sure that those modules are disabled so they don't cause any interference with your game or perhaps break things. That is also an option. If there is a module that you particularly depend on, just check on this list, make sure it's compatible. And if it's not, just wait to update. Just keep playing your game, your weekly games, and it's fine. Just wait until the software is ready. Keep an eye on it. You can also check on, so if you go into Foundry here, if I like to open this, where you can see the module documentation. So let's say for combat numbers here, okay? I'll click on that. Oops, sorry, that's actually the wrong one. My apologies. If I go to the GitHub here, this will tell me the last time it was updated, so the 28th of October. Now, if this hadn't have been updated since like 2020, I would just assume that this module is gone. If it's not compatible and it's not on the compatibility list, like if it's on the list but it's not updated and it hasn't been updated since 2020, I would probably just say goodbye to that module and find another module that does something similar. But it was, in this case, this is the 28th of October. This is quite a recent update. And they seem to be working on it, not super actively, but they do seem to be working on it. So it does seem to be that this should be working fine. Now, this isn't a super overtly complicated system. This is just numbers popping up when you take damage. So it doesn't need many updates, but just, it's good to check, first of all, about what modules are compatible and what aren't, and then check the spreadsheet to see for the remaining ones to see what's actually ready to be updated. Once you have that done, we go back to Foundry here. We'll go back to our setup page. If we go to update software, once that's done, you can see here you can go to alpha, beta, or main release. It's generally not advised that if you're playing your main game and hosting your main game, you're not on the alpha or the beta because things break all the time. That is more for people who are dedicated to pushing information to the devs about what is working, what isn't working, and going to the various discords and saying, oh, your module does work, it doesn't work, it's not working, here's the error that you're getting. Like, for example, I'll pop back into Azeroth for 1 second. If you are getting an error and you don't know where it's coming from, if you press F12 on your keyboard, this opens, in fact, look, I'm getting errors here. This opens your log here, okay? And this tells you the various different information about what it's compiling and what it's doing. I have a log fail here, which doesn't seem to be mattering too much at all anyway, but I don't know what this is even about. But you can follow this chain and see what's actually failing. Now, in this case, this is something within Foundry. This has nothing to do with a module that I'm using. But if I had a bunch of modules active, it would tell me there, for example, it would say, like, let's just say it's combat numbers. Okay. So it would say combat numbers would be the beginning of that text, like up here, wherever this is. So the tat fail, it would say something, combat numbers, then have the module ID, and then give you all of that information on the system there. You could then give that to the developer and then present it to them, and they could hopefully come up with a fix for you. Usually all of the developers for the main modules anyway are very active on the FoundryVTT Discord, but they also have their own private Discords. You can always check, usually on the GitHub page for each of the developer thing, they always tell you how to contact them or how they would like to be contacted. So if you're interested in doing beta stuff, that's how you would do it. Now, if we go to update software, the final step is really just updating the actual software. So what you do is, we know that the update is there, but we click check for update. And here it tells us all the important information. So this is the notes that I presented to you a moment ago from the website. This is just very compact and a little bit harder to read, but this is everything that's coming in this update, okay? Now, there's a new major update available. So what we can do is we can click, once you've read this, if you want to, or once you know what you're doing, you click on begin download. Oh, right. Interesting. Yeah, you can't update this because you need to open Foundry as an administrator. So how do we do that? what you would do is you'd close Foundry. You go to your start page here. You right-click Foundry, and you click on More, Run as Administrator. For me, it's pinned, but wherever you have Foundry, you just right-click it, even if it's on your dashboard. Right-click, Run as Administrator, click Yes. When this is open, this will now have permissions to read and write to your computer, which it doesn't directly have otherwise, which is a good security feature of Foundry. It takes a moment to load and to run, and it's going a little bit slow because it's trying to use as much processing power as possible, which is a bit tricky while I'm recording. But what will happen now is it'll open up Foundry for me, and then I can go to my update software. Simply click on update software after I'm running as administrator, and that will allow me to do the update. This is taking a little longer than expected. Okay, what I'll do is I will do a jump cut then to when this has loaded. Okay, and we're back in. If you have an issue like that as well, you could always just quit Foundry and do it again. Just right click it, run as administrator, and that should work for you. Okay, so if we go to our update software here, we go for check for update. It will tell us again that the update is available. And then if we go to begin downloads here, you can see that it has started downloading in the background. It's just downloading it there. Move this over. It started downloading here. The bar is moving across. It's just going to download version 9.9 as opposed to 8.9. And once that's done installing, it's going to reboot the system for me, and that's it. When it's ready, you then go into your world again. Once again, it may need to do some updates to your compendiums, much as it did with the game system before. But once you've done that, it will allow you to play and run things. And then it's up to you to test how you would like to do things with, for example, your modules or different things. Now, let's say you didn't follow the advice at the beginning of this video and check if your modules are working, or perhaps you did and still you're having issues even loading the world. Let's just say, for example, hypothetically, you can't get into the world. I'm going to show you now how to start your world in what's called safe mode. Safe mode will allow you to run your world without starting all the modules with it, which means you can start a base thing. Now, you don't have to worry about it. When you reactivate your module, all the settings that you had in your module previously should be reverted back to the way they were. It won't go back to factory zero. It just starts the world without the modules to give you a bit more leeway and freedom when it comes to making mistakes. If you start your world and the module has a mistake in it, it's just not loading. That's how you fix it. I'm going to close this for a second. I'm not going to close this for a second because it's trying to run. Okay. Again, I'll do a quick jump cut here to when this is finished installing. Okay, we're back. So what you do is you put in your password, your administrator password, and you're back here. Oh, they have a new section to filter worlds. Amazing. So once the update's done, oh, they got rid of my orc. That's rude. Once the update's done, you will have your various worlds here that you can start in. Now, let's, for example, say, hypothetically, as I said in the previous section, your world isn't going to start. If it's not starting, and if you cannot get into your world, you click Edit World, and then Launch in Safe Configuration. This will disable all the modules. I'll even just show you. This will disable all the modules. Perfect. So actually, it's going to do it for you anyway. So world migration data is required. So when you launch the world, it will actually migrate the data from 8.9 to version 9. I have 86 modules, of which 70 appear to be not yet compatible. Which, this is something that you need to be very aware of when you're doing your updates. So what it's actually going to do is disable them anyway. So it's going to automatically put it into safe mode for you. This is something it didn't used to previously do. So I was actually telling you how to do this. Perfect. It seems like it already automatically does it. So that's even better. When you're going through this, you just click yes to this and it'll load the world. So this is the world that we made. Set up with the old system. They've completely disabled my UI, but that's okay. So you click join world, and what it will do is update everything directly for you. Perfect. Okay. So they have a new section for support. That's nice. I'm gonna have to look into this. So what you can do then is you can go in and you can turn on your modules automatically if you want. As you can see, I've got 86 that aren't configured. The ones that are don't have compatibility risk beside them. So that'll help you spot it too. But the ones that have compatibility risk, that doesn't mean that they're not compatible with 9. It just means that they weren't necessarily changed in their information sheet to be updated for 9. So Again, it is a good idea or a good practice to just check this spreadsheet and see, because some of them may be updated but still say compatibility risk. I've been using some modules since version 7, I think, that still hadn't been updated for like the longest time. There, look, like show drag distance 0.7.5. I've been using that the entire time. It works perfect. So it just may be a risk, but it may not actually do anything wrong, as an example. So that seems to be everything for the moment. I mean, now your Foundry's up to date. You can run it. You can see how things are running. If you're turning back on your modules, this is probably the last thing I'll say. If you're turning on your modules, do it one at a time, or like do it at 5 at a time. So like if you take the first 5, what you'll see here is it's actually telling me that it needs dependencies here. So about time needs to have simple calendar. So you click yes, it'll tick that. Socket lib, you tick that. And then if I go down to socket lib and simple calendars, you can see they're already ticked. It's just telling me that they have dependencies. A dependency means that it requires another module to work. And in those instances, then you just tick that and then you just confirm with yes. And then just click save. When you click save, it will load all of this module information for you. And then you can, it'll refresh Foundry and you can see if it's working, test a few things. And if that works, go ahead and add maybe another 5 or something. If you add them all, it becomes very, very increasingly difficult to know which one is causing the issue. And they can still hit F12 and check the menu, but it may not give you all of that information fully, or it may give you a lot of information. If say 7 of the 80 modules that I'm using weren't working, it may give me just a ton of red information, and it's very hard to dissect that. So doing it a small amount at a time would be better. Perfect. Well, I hope that helps. Happy update day. If there's anything else that you guys need, feel free to let me know. Post your questions down in the comments as well. Have a good day.